What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of my Chalk Talk series here on College Football 26. In the first episode, we went over and installed Meg coverage, the first coverage that most teams install when looking to begin a quarters-centric defense. And today, we are going to jump to the big dog. This is everything and anything you are going to need to know about quarters defense in College Football 26. So we're going to go over how quarters plays against 5 different looks in the game. We're going to see how quarters plays against doubles, trips, bunch, empty, and 4 strong alignments. So we are not going to go over all of the terminology and stuff that we went over in the last episode. I'm going to trust that if you're here, you either watch that or you know enough to get by. If you do need to go back and watch, definitely go ahead. The terminology video section of the video is right at the beginning, first 5 minutes. You can go watch that, then come back here. But to save us some time, because we got a lot to cover, we're going to jump right in. So, looking at quarters versus doubles, this is going to be fast because all of the assignments are exactly the same. There's just more. So if you remember, we can start with our apex defender. These two guys right here. They have the same assignments as they do in Meg. They are going to wall off number 2. And if he goes vertical, they will let him go and go play the flat. If he is not vertical, then they have him man-to-man. The safeties are still doing their 2-to-1 read, so we are watching what he does. If he goes vertical, he is mine. If he is not vertical, my eyes now go to number 1, and I'm going to help the corner with him. The hook, in 99% of circumstances in quarters against doubles, is man-to-man on the running back. We still have our push call, so if the back goes out fast to the flat and this linebacker is in a bad spot and it's just going to be really hard for him to get to the back, he will make a push call, which tells the corner, or the apex, you need to drive on number 3, and the hook will move to collect number 2. So all of those rules from Meg still apply to quarters versus doubles, but we have more exceptions now for the corners and the apexes. In Meg, we didn't have to worry about the corners because they were man-to-man on number 1. That is not the case now. They are now playing a technique that is called mod. And mod stands for man, outside, and deep. So, the corner is going to take the wide receiver man-to-man still on any kind of vertical route. So, anything like this, he still has number 1 man-to-man. But we're talking about routes that are shallow and breaking inside, things that he's really just in a bad position to play because he's so far off the ball, because we're trying to read what the receivers are doing, so the defensive backs need space off the receivers. So this is what the exceptions are trying to do, is trying to help the corners make up for the fact that they're far off the ball and can't react to these quick routes. So the first exception we're going to go over is what happens when number 1 runs a short route. Now, the example that's always given is a hitch. This is a really tough route for him to break on and do anything with. And also, when understanding route distribution, when number 1 runs a hitch out of a double set, this likely tells you that number 2 is running some kind of outbreaking route. The classic example is a smash concept just like this. And if you think about how Meg would play this, corner would crash on the hitch route, And then this would put the safety in a really tough spot, out leveraged against number 2 to have to try and break on the corner. And we talked about that in the Meg video about how that is a weakness of Meg. Now though, we actually have a call to help us against this. Number 1 runs his hitch route. As soon as the corner sees that, he is going to make a smash call. And that is going to be made to the apex here, who as soon as he hears this smash call, as he's walling off number 2, as soon as he hears smash, smash, smash coming from the corner, he is going to attack this hitch route. And then the corner is going to zone out and basically wait for the corner to come, and he's going to collect it. So now we have perfect leverage because we have a corner aligned outside of the corner route, and then we have an apex driving on the stop route. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the smash call in action. First thing that I don't like here, the corner has gotten himself way out of position here. He is way out of control. You can see his hips are turned the wrong way. I'm not sure this is a ratings thing in the game, but his hips should not ever be turned inside. If this was a corner that I was coaching, this would be an automatic 0 for your grade. We do get a good drive here from the apex on the hitch route. You see, if we don't throw this ball really, really early as the quarterback, you're asking for a collision at the very least, or at worst an interception. But if we continue, you can see the corner does react to the corner route, and he's playing it. Now, because the leverage is so bad, we can still do what we talked about in the last episode and throw a really, really flat corner route that almost is just an outbreaker. And we can still win here. However, I do think this is because I am using Rice as my dynasty team, and they do not have good athletic corners. Maybe if these are corners with higher agility, change of direction ratings, they would play this better. But that is the smash call. We are now going to move on to the next call that is in quarters. So the next call that we're going to go over is called under. So we went over what happens when number 1 runs a short route like a hitch. But what happens when he runs underneath like we have here? An in-breaking shallow route. Again, the corner is not in a good leverage position to effectively play this route. So, when he sees the number 1 making his inside break shallow, he is going to scream under, under, under to the apex, and this tells the apex, as he is walling off number 2, that I need to get off of him, and I need to take the in-breaker from number 1. So now he will be man-to-man on number 1. And I'll be going across the field. At this point, it doesn't matter where he runs. It's assumed that he's running a crosser, so the apex is going to take him all the way across the field. The corner will be zoning out now to his deep quarter responsibility, because at the end of the day he is still man outside and deep. So in this case, he is not going to be playing on this outbreaking route here by number 2, but say if this were a corner, he would play it. Now, this was a bit finicky. This is my second time in a different play that I tried to run to get the undercall to work. The first time I ran it, I was trying to run a levels concept with number 2 having a deep inbreaker, because this is a situation where if you're thinking, okay, number 1's running a shallow inbreaker, a shallow cross out of doubles, what are we most likely seeing? Because if you're going to get mesh, you're likely going to see mesh between the number twos, and I thought of, well, let's run levels. Every time I did this, they would not switch. The corner would stay man-to-man on number one, and the apex would carry two vertical and help the safety double him, which is just not what they're supposed to do. So I initially thought that the undercall was not in the game, but then I did some testing and I ran some trips, and they do have the undercall in trips, which we will get to, but I went back to doubles and I ran, this is a different concept, this is called crash, that the offense is running, and now they ran the undercall. So it's in the game. It seems to be a bit finicky though, but we're going to go ahead and take a look and see how it plays out. And you see kind of what I'm talking about. Ideally, you'd love for the corner to actually drive on this route, but he doesn't, and the safety is the one who the game marks as technically responsible for the route, which I don't love. So I mean, this is free access. I mean, this is wide open. So the undercall is in the game because our apex did take number one, and he is running with him across the field, which is great. But it leaves a lot of problems here with the number two breaking out, and it pretty much leaves him wide open. So there is a situation, absolutely, where you can run this, but it's not something you should rely on. So if you're getting a lot of crossing routes, I would heavily suggest getting out of quarters and not trying to rely on the undercall, because it leaves someone open. Now, if your opponent is not running two out, then go for it, because then it plays really well. But this is a problem in the game that is not present in real life. As for the strengths and weaknesses of quarters against doubles, the biggest strength that we have here is that quarters is safe, reliable, and easy. The rules are really, really simple, and once you get a couple of weeks of teaching this to a defense, they're really good at executing the rules of quarters. And that is why, as I talked about in Meg, that quarters is seen as just the base coverage that a lot of defenses run nowadays in football. Some of the weaknesses, though, the first one is a quick outbreaker by number two. And the reason for this, once again, kind of like all the problems that we're talking about with quarters, is leverage. If you take one look at the apex, he is aligned on the inside of the shoulder of number two. A quick outbreaking route, so something, like a 3-step speed out or a 5-yard outbreaker, that's going to beat the leverage every single time with a collegiate athlete or higher. So this is just something that defensive coordinators are kind of going to give you. There's not much we can really do about it, and it's just something that if your opponent keeps on hitting you there, you gotta change it up. And that's why other coverages have been invented, is to counteract the weaknesses of a coverage like quarters. Some defensive coordinators will take the apex and align him outside of number two, out here, but then you're giving up free access on things like slants and quick ins, shallows, stuff like that. And just a general rule of football, this goes for coverage and pass protection and throwing the ball, everything. Going inside is the easiest. You don't want to allow inside pressure. You'd rather allow outside pressure. You want to throw the ball over the middle of the field than rather outside the numbers. Same thing with coverage. You would rather give up the outside breaking route than the inside breaking route, because it is a tougher play. And then the other weakness of quarters is any kind of double vertical inside breaking concept. So you've definitely probably seen that people say, to run a post dig, and this makes entirely a lot of sense, because once this dig gets vertical, the safety is going to drive on it, and then that leaves the corner essentially man-to-man on the post. And if you have a dog at number 1 who can win vertical one-on-one, that could spell trouble. Now, if you have a corner that is athletic enough and good enough in man-to-man coverage, then there's no problem here. But this is a very situational kind of thing. Another concept that we could see is double posts. So a shallower post from number 2 and then a deeper post from number 1. Just read the safety's leverage. If the safety drives hard on the first post, throw it to the second post, and vice versa. Okay, it is time to get into quarters against trips, and this coverage goes by a different name. In game, it is still quarters, but we will call it Poach. And the reason for this is because we need to help our hook defender out a little bit. Your hook defender is most always going to be a linebacker, and one of the problems that you can face in quarters is when number 3 runs vertical. For example, when you get 4 verticals, because the corner has to take number 1, the safety has to take number 2 because he's reading 2 to 1. So that leaves the linebacker, your hook defender, in a very tough situation to have to match a fast wide receiver or an athletic tight end down the middle of the field. So your rules for these 4 guys are exactly the same as in quarters. Nothing changes. Your rules change for these 3 on the backside. Starting with the corner, he is man-to-man on the single receiver side. So it's just like we're playing Meg all over again. You're man everywhere he goes. The apex is Meg on the running back. So we have 2 sets of man-to-man coverage here. Well, now there's no responsibility for this guy because both 1 and 2 are manned up by the corner and the apex respectively. So this frees up the safety to help on number 3 going vertical. So what you're going to get when you run quarters against trips is the safety is going to play poach technique, where he is going to basically be like a center fielder in baseball. He's going to get to the middle of the field, and if 3 is running vertical, he's going to take him, and he's going to help out on whatever route 3 runs. If 3 does not run vertical, so let's just say, for example, he runs a drag, he's not going to drive down on this because that's just a waste of resources. Instead, he's going to get his eyes to number 1 and help the corner. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and show Poach playing against 4 verticals, and you are immediately going to see there is our safety getting to the middle of the field. Again, I don't like that he's turning his back. It's the same thing with the corners. I don't like them opening up their inside hip. The technique they play with isn't great, but they are doing their assignment correctly. Ideally, you just like him to smoothly backpedal his way over there instead of turning open and running with his back to the quarterback. But he is getting there, and we're going to see he picks up number 3 at about 10 to 15 yards depth. And so we're able to switch the responsibility from a linebacker who might not be able to handle number 3 going deep to a safety who definitely can. Here is a weakness of poach coverage against trips. So you see we have a flood concept coming here. So if we just kind of go through and think about what our responsibilities are going to be, we're man-to-man here, we're man-to-man here. We still have our push, smash, and under calls all in effect in poach. So because 3 is going fast to the flat, the apex is going to drive on this, and technically the hook defender is responsible for this outbreaking route by number 3. Now, he is going to move over to start taking it, but then we're going to declare that 2 is vertical, and the safety is going to be responsible for this. And there's going to be a window where you're going to be able to fit a throw in here to the out route. And there it is. So right here, we decided that this is vertical, so the hook defender is not taking it. He's getting back to the hook area, and now the safety is responsible for him. And there is a window where we can make this throw. This is the other big weakness of all match coverage systems in general, is that it does require your defensive backs to go through reads very quickly. If they cannot, then there are going to be windows of opportunity where a quarterback who knows what he's doing is going to be able to get a throw in kind of in this waiting period of trying to figure out who's running what, where am I going. So this is where you just need a lot of reps and mental speed and acuity to be able to make these decisions really fast. But this is absolutely a weakness of poach coverage, is 3 deep out, or making sure that the hook is responsible for number 3, a deep out breaking route, typically from number 2, with the use of the push call. The other big weakness of poach coverage is, again, taking advantage of that waiting period of trying to figure out exactly where the defensive backs are going to be going. And this time it's going to be manipulating our backside poach safety. So remember, he initially is reading number 3 and seeing, does he go vertical or is he staying shallow, in which case the safety will then go and match on number 1. Well, if we think about running something to slow play number 3, like play action, where we're going to slow play this, maybe this is a tight end, so maybe he is in here as an attached Y, and we're going to have him maybe chip the defensive end and then release up the field. Well, now the safety has to actually wait a little bit and read what's happening. And there's a time as he's moving himself over here trying to figure out what's happening, we can run an inbreaker to weak side number 1. That is that's the biggest weak side weakness of poach coverage, because you are trusting your corner to be 100% man-to-man on the backside. So if you really think about it, any kind of quick inbreaker before the safety can react can beat this. So this, slant, dig, anything like that can definitely win against poach coverage. Okay, it is time for us to get into how quarters plays bunch. And the name of this coverage is box. Now this, again, just like poach, is an automatic check that the game makes for you. This is something that was not in the game only a couple of years ago. So match coverage was pretty much useless, at least quarters was, against bunch. But now EA's put it into the game and it works pretty well. So we're going to start with the corner. His responsibility is going to be the second out-breaking route in the pattern. And if there is no second out-breaking route, there's only one route that breaks outside, then he is going to get back vertical. The apex is taking the first out-breaking route in the pattern. And if there is no route that breaks outside, so say if we just get, verticals, then he is going to get to the flat. and pick up whatever comes to the flats. So say if this guy came all the way across the field while we're running verticals, the apex would take him. The hook defender is responsible for the first player breaking in the pattern. So, say, like we have called here, we have mesh called, well then he's going to drive on number 1 breaking in. If there is no first in breaking route, so for example, if we get something like this, then he should get to his hook just like he does in regular quarters and play that intermediate dig area. And then our safety is going to be taking the second in breaking route in the pattern. So if we had a route, say, like this, he will be responsible for the dig by number 2. We go ahead and take a look at the play that we've called here. We've called a mesh concept. So let's kind of go ahead and work our way through this and how Box is going to play this out. So the first outbreaking route is going to technically be the corner by number 1. So the apex is going to take number 1 until he figures out that he's vertical. And then he's going to drive back down to the flat. So at the end of the day, it will be the corner basically taking number 1 man-to-man. The apex, we already talked about, is going to wall 1 until he's going vertical, and then he's going to get to the flat. First in breaker, the hook will handle, so he is going to be man-to-man on the tight end. And then the second in breaker is going to be this sit route by number 2, which will be handled by the safety. We are man-to-man back here. We are man matching on the back as the apex. And so what you're going to get is, again, you're going to get this safety poaching over to the middle of the field. So the biggest thing you're going to notice is the leverage problem that we face here with the corner. He got bumped pretty badly here, and this kind of screwed up his entire coding. So he's here, and again, the leverage here makes it really tough. If this were me in a game, I'd probably be pressing him because we had a nasty alignment from the number 1 here. Instead of being aligned usually like out here, he was out here, almost like a wing. So we would probably want to press him in game to get him to match up better. But you see, the corner, he's going to ping pong against all of these guys here. And by the time he stops ping ponging, he's like back here. And then he kind of just takes the role of the deep safety. So that kind of glitched out a bit. And then the backside safety followed number 1 across the field. So that is an alignment issue that we would fix with a pre-snap adjustment by pressing the corner. But other than that, this played out exactly how we wanted it to. We got man-to-man on the corner route, and actually, no, it didn't play out the way we wanted it to, because what is going on here? Because this guy, right behind the X button, that's our corner, and this guy is our safety. So this is something that they do in the game that I don't love, is they try and switch on routes once they have declared themselves as vertical. And that's something that you can do, but I don't think the game does a great job with it. It does actually save us in one situation that I will get into in a little bit, but in this case, it does leave this sit route open. Now, I'm not throwing it right now because there actually is a defender sitting there, but if we give it just a second, That's open. Now, our pressure gets home, which is great, but that is open. And that is a weakness of box. It is very easily manipulated by taking advantage, again, of that read and react period that all the DBs have trying to figure out, okay, who's the first outbreaker, who's the second outbreaker, who's the first inbreaker, who's the first outbreaker. There's a little bit of time that you could just run a quick little spacing route or a hitch and just dump it in there and get your yards. Now, is that a reliable way to move down the field? No, it's not, but it is something that offenses can use against you. So I just talked about a situation where the switching actually helps us out here, and it's going to be in this example against a flood concept. So what you would kind of expect is because number 1 is going to declare himself vertical, the corner would take him. But because this corner route from number 2 is technically the second outbreaking route, what we're going to get is a switch. So what's going to happen, 1's going to run vertical and the corner is going to take him until this corner route from number 2 makes his break, in which case the corner will switch onto number 2 on his corner, and the safety will continue to carry. So we actually get a really effective switch here in the game. This is a weakness of box, is running a strong flood concept, but because we have this switch that automatically happens in the game, it actually takes away one of the biggest weaknesses of box. So this is actually fantastic. So the safety is responsible for 1, the corner is going to be responsible for 2, and then the apex is going to be responsible for 3 coming out. The hook will drop to his hook. This route here by weak side number 1 will probably still get open because of, again, our leverage problem that we have here. But again, we would ideally be pressing this. But this is actually going to play out really, really well and cover this concept extremely well. So, as we can see, everything here played out pretty much exactly how we expected. Our flood concept, everyone is covered. The shallow route is wide open because of our leverage problem. And the back did release, but the apex is here reacting to it. So if we press this corner, we have everything covered. And your best bet is either hoping that he still wins against the press, or you gotta check it down to your running back here. So box actually does a fantastic job taking away the flood concept. Here we're just testing out another route concept here, kind of a cross mesh, just kerfuffle that we have going on here. There are no outbreaking routes, so I wanted to see how the game would go ahead and play this, and again, it plays it pretty well. Again, just ignore that number 1 is going to get open because of the alignment issues that we have here, but we're going to go through and see that this is actually covered really well. So you see we have our hook matching on number 3. We have our apex and our corners are zoning out here because no one is coming into their immediate area. But you can see we have our post safety working his way over, and we also have our strong safety working his way over, and he is going to collect number 1, running his route deep. And then we do get a bit of a kerfuffle here again because of the weak side corner getting bounced around. He just gets lost in the shuffle here. He's all the way back there, and now he's trying to man himself up on number 2 with a pressed fixed alignment that would be fixed. So it's in practice mode right now, but in a game situation we would make sure that would not happen. So now we're going to get into empty coverage, and this is where we're going to have to do a little bit more installing because the game does make some checks for you. And this is another example of one of those checks. They are going to check to a coverage umbrella topic called box and triangle. So this is referring to the types of coverage that are played on each side of the ball. So again, if we draw our line down the center of the field, on the double receiver side, on the double side here, so this side, we are going to get a triangle coverage concept, which we talked about in the Meg episode, which is a 3/2 split safety concept. Now, this is left ambiguous because you can pick whatever type of triangle coverage you want to run. In game, they just run quarters. So all of our quarters rules apply on the left side. So we are man, outside, and deep on number 1. We are taking 2 out in this situation if we're the apex, and the safety in this case is going to see that 2 is going shallow and get his eyes to 1. So this is going to be covered really, really easily. On the strong side, they're going to run what is called box coverage. Now, this is not the same as box coverage that is run in bunch. A box coverage concept is a 4/3 split safety concept. And the specific coverage that the game is choosing to run here, I'm not 100% on this, but the closest I can get to confirming is that they are going to be running a coverage called Stump. So they are not running quarters, because if you think about it, if we're trying to run quarters against empty on the trip side, that means that our hook defender is not going to have any help from this backside safety. So they are running Stump. And Stump is pretty simple. All you're going to get is the corner playing mod, man, outside, and deep, but there is a smash call built into this. So if he does run shallow, then we're going to ignore it. We're going to drop out. The apex is going to come over to play it, and if we get a corner out from number 2, we have it covered. The apex has a lot of responsibilities here in Stump. His first responsibility is to make sure that number 3 does not go out fast. If number 3 does, then the formula ends there. The apex is taking him man-to-man 100%. If we get the smash call from the corner, he's going out to play it. And then if those two things don't happen, we are man-to-man on number 2, unless number 2 goes underneath. If number 2 goes underneath, the apex is going to drop into this curl window and play whatever comes. So the checklist goes 3 out to smash call, to 2 under, to curl. The hook defender is responsible for whatever crosser comes between number 3 and number 2. So if we get a crossing route from number 3, hook's going to take it. If 3 goes out and we get a crosser here, the hook's going to match number 2 and the apex will take number 3 going out. The safety is doing a 3-2 read. So instead of reading 1-2, or 2-1, like he would in quarters, he is now going to start by having his eyes on number 3. If 3 goes vertical, he will pick him up. If 3 is short and 2 goes vertical, then the safety will take him. So there's a lot of rules here in Stump, but this is the closest that I could find to the coverage that the game puts you in when you call quarters against empty. The problem is, as you can see, 2 is running underneath, and our apex is sticking with it, and our hook defender is taking 3 vertical. I looked through all of my available resources. I could not find a base triangle or box coverage that would actually play every concept like this that wouldn't have some kind of exception that would break in a different play situation. My closest guess is this is some kind of variation of Stump that the game is trying to play, and it just doesn't quite get all of the pieces right, but this is what we're working with. Here though, and this is again kind of where we get into the finickiness of video games, we actually do get the coverage to play out like Stump. So we take number 2 off of this kind of return route and just put him on a shallow, and the game actually plays this 100% correctly now. You're going to see the hook is going to drive down on the under route, and then the safety is left responsible for 3 going vertical. So it seems like that the apex is saying, oh, he started going out, number 2 did, and then he's going back in. Well, I've already declared that I'm taking him man to man, so I'm just going to stick with him. So I think that's what the game is doing, and this is pretty much where I got the idea, okay, I think we're getting Stump here from the automatic check from the game. The last thing I did to confirm that I think we're in Stump is by testing to see if the smash call was in effect, because if we were playing some other box coverage, like for example Stubby or Stealer, which are 2 of the other really common box coverages that we will eventually get into, there would not be a smash call built into this. Stump is very specific in that it does have the smash call built in, and you can see we go ahead, we run our little hitch concept, and we get a smash call because we have the corner taking the slot going deep and the apex has driven on the hitch. So I'm 99% sure that they're running Stump as the automatic check to empty. It's just a bit wonky with a double move coming from number 2 on who is responsible for him, and then it just plays out like man-to-man. The last formation that we're going to go ahead and get into here is 4 strong. So 4 strong, all it means is that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 eligible receivers to one side of the field. Now, in CFB 25, if your opponent came out in 4 strong and you came out in a match coverage, the match would automatically turn off, and you would just then get spot drop coverage. So if you came out in quarters and your opponent came out in 4 strong, you would just get cover 4 drop. Just your classic cover 4. We're dropping to our zones, and this is just so easily shreddable by all the concepts that we have in modern football. But now EA has put in actual matching principles to counteract 4 strong, and it really is quite simple. We are man-to-man, Meg on this side, we are playing Poach here, we are matching final number 4 as the apex, we are taking final number 3 if he runs something inside as the hook, or something we can sit on like this hitch route that he's going to run. We'll sit. If he goes fast to the flat, we still get our push call that we make to the apex, else we're sitting in the dig route. We are still rerouting number 2. If he goes vertical, we leave him. We have our push call, we have our smash call, we have our under call. Everything else plays exactly the same. The big fact is that we get the match here on whoever number 4 is. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in and see this play out. And there you go. We get the match rules to go exactly how we expect it to. The ball flies around a little bit after the play, but we get exactly what we want to look for. I started playing around a bit. I put 3 on a fast out, and we do eventually get that push call. It is a little bit late, but that's still okay. Maybe some players in higher player recognition will do a bit better for us there. And then one last little tidbit that I started to play around with was looking at the RPOs. So I know that EA did put in the RPO coach adjustment to actually say whether or not we're going to play pass or play run. And I got really, really excited because there is a coverage that you can play that is entirely based around whether or not you're going to be playing the run or pass as the apex defender. And I wanted to see if that actually could be done in game. But whenever I ran it out of doubles, nothing happened. It didn't matter if I put him on pass or run or whatever. And you're going to see here, I call a bubble RPO with the emphasis on pass. So what I was hoping for is the hook would actually drive on this. But no, all he does is he still plays the run, leaving the bubble open. The only RPO that I have called so far and actually seen the adjustment do something is an RPO like this one right here, where number 3 is sitting, because then the linebacker or the hook defender would, based on the call, if it was conservative and we're going to stay and pass, he would actually go ahead and just sit and cover the hitch route. And if it was aggressive, he would drive on the run. So that's that. The RPO adjustment call doesn't really seem to work against the things I would like it to work against, but it is nice. We do have a feature that at least can help us a little bit sometimes. And most importantly, though, we get the match principles against 4 strong. So you can run quarters against 4 strong this year in College Football 26. But that is going to do it for this video today, going over quarters defense here in College Football 26. I am so happy that we actually now get the matching principles against 4 strong. Box coverage seems to be very, very strong. And we just seem to have a lot more ability to call the base play and see checks be made automatically like they would in real life. Because when you're going against these no-huddle offenses, you just don't have enough time to make all the adjustments needed to make sure that your defense doesn't leave someone wide open. If you want to see this stuff in action, I am in the middle of starting my very first dynasty here on YouTube with the Rice Owls. I'm going to be using all of the schemes and concepts that you see here in these Chalk Talk series videos and many, many more in action. And there will be videos of me explaining how I use them, why I use them, and whether or not it was a good call. So if you're interested in that, definitely go ahead and subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. Hope that you go ahead and follow along so we can all start learning a little bit more about football here and just become better football players. Thank you so very much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.